Welcome to our comprehensive guide on submitting an RIA request for payment. I'm Liz Rosinski, Grants Program Director at RIA, and in this video, I'll guide you through each step of submitting a complete request for payment or RFP package, allowing you as the grantee to request grant funds for work completed on an approved project. By following the steps outlined here and ensuring your submission is accurate and complete, you can help streamline the processing time. Now let's get started as we dive into the world of RFPs. For any new grantees joining us, let's start by explaining what an RFP form is and its purpose. Again, the request for payment form is used by grantees to request disbursement of grant funds, whether for a state or SCIP grant. It plays a key role in the funding process at RIA. A reminder that you can't request grant funds until other steps have been completed first. If you're ready to draw down grant funds, this means that the following grant tasks have already been completed or taken place. First, the grantee has submitted the authorized approved signatures for payments and checks form with original wet signatures. Block 3 of this form identifies those individuals who can either request the payment or sign the checks written to the contractor. It also means that RIA has cleared startup and issued an RIA notice to proceed. In addition, RIA has satisfactorily reviewed the contract prior to execution for which the payments are being drawn against, and a copy of the executed contract and NTP have been submitted to RIA. Finally, if a schedule of values was required as part of the contract review letter, that too has been submitted to RIA for review as well, and also found to be satisfactory. With all of that in place, a grantee can make the request for payment. When costs have been incurred and invoices are in hand, then it is time to make a request for payment. Grantees begin by completing the RFP form, identifying their project and the amount of funding requested. Required documentation such as invoices and proof of completed work must be attached. Once the form and documents are ready, they are submitted electronically to your assigned grant manager for review. If everything is accurate and complete, the RFP is approved and forwarded by RIA to the State Treasurer's Office for processing and issuance of payment to the grantee. A quick note for grantees, because the State Treasurer's Office issues payment and not RIA, make sure you have an active State Treasurer's Office account and that all information is up to date to avoid any issues when payments are processed. To locate the RFP forms, please visit our website at ria.sc.gov and navigate to the Forms and Documents page under the Resources tab. Here you can download the most recent versions of both the state and SCIP RFP forms. Be sure to select the correct form for your project to prevent any payment delays. Unsure which form you need? Let's explore the differences between the SCIP RFP form and the state RFP form. While both documents serve the same purpose, requesting grant funds for approved projects, they are distinct in a few ways. First, you'll notice each has its own branding. The SCIP RFP will feature the SCIP logo at the top left corner, indicating that the funding is tied to the South Carolina Infrastructure Investment Program, which utilizes federal funds. On the other hand, the state RFP will showcase the RIA logo, indicating its affiliation with the state funding process managed by the South Carolina Rural Infrastructure Authority. Beyond the logos, the structure of the form may differ slightly. However, the required documents to attach remain the same. Both forms are designed to ensure that disbursement of project funds adhere to the specific guidelines of their respective program. It is important to submit the correct form based on the source of the grant. One way to identify which program your project falls under is by examining your grant number.
SCIP grants will have a grant number that begins with A-23, while state grants will start with either a P, R, or S, followed by the fiscal year the grant was awarded.
Now let's explore the specifics of completing a request for payment or RFP form, beginning with SCIP. This demonstration will start with a thorough review of each section of the form to ensure a clear understanding of the requirements. Then we'll go through an example together. In this first section, it covers key project information, including the grantee name, project title, contact person and contact details, grant number, pay request number, final pay request status, and whether the payment is an advance or a reimbursement. The request can be an advance or reimbursable depending on whether the grantee has paid for the invoiced work before submitting the RFP. It is important to note that the pay request number corresponds to the RFP number, which will be a sequential number based on the number of requests you have already submitted. It may not always align with the contractor's payment application number. Additionally, if this is the final payment request, indicating that all grant funds are being drawn, it is essential to select yes next to the final pay request option. Next, the focus shifts to Section 2, where the funding source for the request must be specified. There are two options available, the SCIP and state funding categories. It is important to note that requests can only be made from the state category if the project has been awarded state grant funds in addition to the federal SCIP funds. This information enables RIA to accurately identify the appropriate funding source for the request. Under the budget item, it is recommended to keep this fairly generic in the description. Construction, engineering, whatever is applicable. Note the spreadsheet also calculates information, so properly filling this out is key. Be sure to list the total grant amount under grant amount approved, indicate the total amount previously requested, and how much is being requested in the current RFP. The remaining balance field will auto-calculate. The next section serves as a reminder to include the necessary applicable documentation to support your request for grant funds. This should include invoices, the contractor's pay application fully executed, as well as progress estimates, proof of stored materials if applicable, and any other relevant supporting documents. On the right side of this section, the form will automatically calculate the percentage spent in three categories: SCIP grant funding, state grant funding, and local other match funding. This is especially helpful because nearly all SCIP projects have a match requirement. This feature, if all of the fields are filled out accurately, allows you to check your spending percentages and assess the remaining funds available to be drawn from the grant or documented as match. Next, Section 4 is dedicated to reporting all local funds expended. In the budget item column, the specific use of local funds should be indicated, whether for construction, engineering, acquisition, etc. The source column clarifies the origin of these funds. For example, it could be local, SRF, CDBG, etc. While the amount spent to date column reflects the total amount spent thus far in accordance with the grant application and budget or as amended. The final section of the form requires the grantee's authorized signature, along with the signer's title and the date. Remember, the signature must be one of the individuals listed in Block 3 of the Authorized or Approved Signatures for Payments and Check form that was completed around the time of the grant award. If there have been any changes in staffing or elected officials that are listed in Block 3, a new form with original wet signatures must be submitted ahead of or concurrent with a request for payment. A reminder that the person who authorizes the individuals to sign checks and request grant funds cannot also sign checks and request grant funds themselves. Accurately completing these sections facilitates a smooth and transparent process for requesting and receiving funds.
This segment of the presentation serves as a demonstration. In this example, the grantee information section has already been filled out. The number 1 has been entered next to Pay Request to indicate that this is the first submission, and the Advanced checkbox has been selected to specify the type of payment being requested. The project has received both $500,000 in RIA state funding and $8 million in SCIP funding for construction, as well as approved engineering costs under SCIP for $250,000. Since this is the initial request, there are no previously requested funds listed. The next step involves reviewing the contractor's first pay application and accompanying documentation to determine the amount of grant funding that can be requested.
There are several documents shown here, including the contractor's application for payment, progress estimate, stored materials sheet, and reviewed and approved to pay invoices. Based on the contractor's pay request, the total payment amount for this application is $151,401.60. Additionally, an engineering invoice for $18,000 has also been submitted. You will want to ensure the pay apps and invoices are thoroughly reviewed and approved by the engineer and your local financial staff, including those who review budgets and payments. Approvals should be marked on the invoices and include approval dates. For this example, it has been determined that SCIP funds will be drawn first to ensure federal deadlines are met. However, the grantee must ensure that there is adequate documentation available for review that confirms match dollars are also being spent. Let's see how this information translates onto the RFP form. These amounts can now be added to the RFP form in their respective categories. As this amount relates to construction, it will be recorded under the designated construction line item. Furthermore, with the approval of SCIP funding for engineering costs, a separate line item will also be created for that expense. As shown on the screen, the $8 million award is listed in the SCIP grant amount approved column, split into construction costs and engineering costs, while the $500,000 state award is entered in the RIA state section under its respective grant amount approved column, according to the budget item for construction and/or engineering. The requested amount of $151,401.60 is subsequently recorded under the SCIP amount requested this draw for the construction line item, and the same procedure applies to the $18,000 designated for engineering costs. As displayed on the screen, the form automatically calculates the remaining grant funding and shows the percentage breakdown of SCIP, state, and local funding as the figures are entered. The next section of the page serves as a reminder to ensure that all supporting documentation is prepared and attached to the request for payment. This section highlights the importance of including any documentation that may impact the funding amount or require an update, such as a change order. A closer examination of the key documents required for a pay request highlights the essential attachments needed for submission. For a construction project, the requested grant funding amount must correspond with the contractor's pay application, which the engineer must sign to confirm that the work has been completed as outlined in the pay estimate. In some cases, the request for grant funds is shared with other funders for the same activity. What this means is that only a portion of the amount due is requested from RIA based on other funds contributing. We call this a pro rata split. Generally, at a minimum, it could be your match requirement, whether that's 15 or 25%. When a pro rata split is utilized, it is crucial that the requested amount accurately reflects the percentage breakdown. The contractor's pay application requires a detailed breakdown, which can be presented through a progress payment sheet, and if necessary, a stored materials sheet. Should items be included under stored materials, corresponding invoices for those materials must also be attached. On the engineering side, all invoices should be provided to substantiate the requested grant funding, including services rendered and their dates. Contractor pay applications are required to be signed by the contractor, engineer, and owner, while all engineering or professional services invoices must bear the signature of the appropriate grant or financial representative. In addition, these invoices must also reflect some type of review or approval to pay. For reimbursement requests, whether construction or engineering, a copy of the check must also be submitted as proof of payment to the contractor. In the final section of the form, any local or other non-RIA, non-skip grant costs incurred should be listed here. For this example, $150,000 in local construction costs will be entered, demonstrating where this information should be recorded on the form. The pre-filled fields correspond to items that align with the original application budget and cost estimate, unless later revised. Lastly, this document must be signed and dated by an individual listed on the Authorized and Approved Signatures for Payments and Checks form. As shown on the screen, Block 3 of the Authorized and Approved Signatures for Payments and Check form lists the individuals authorized to sign RFP forms and checks for payment processing. As we continue, it's important to highlight common mistakes that can negatively impact the RFP submission process and delay receipt of funds. Being aware of these pitfalls can help streamline the process and ensure timely receipt of requested funds. First, lack of a grantee's signature on engineering invoices marking approval to pay can lead to delays. It is essential that all engineering invoices are duly signed and dated by the grantee before submission. Another frequent issue is missing invoices for stored materials. All required invoices should be included to correlate to all listed materials and substantiate the request. Additionally, ensure that a detailed stored materials summary sheet accompanies the submission, as it provides crucial details about the materials. In addition, another important consideration is that stored materials must be located on site, as detailed in the summary sheet. This verification is key to ensuring compliance. Be cautious about missing change orders related to the pay application. Remember, substantial change orders must be approved in advance by RIA. Any minor change orders not yet approved by RIA must be attached to the RFP. These documents are essential for accurate processing. It's also important to make sure the signature on the RFP matches the authorized and approved signatures listed in Block 3 of the Authorized and Approved Signatures for Payments and Check form that we have on file, and this is to avoid any complications. We cannot say this enough, as it happens so frequently. Moreover, confirm that there are no missing signatures on the contractor pay application. It's common for the grantee, owner, or engineer's signature to be overlooked, which can impede the approval process. Pay applications should also be clear and readable. Submissions that are difficult to read, especially those that have been poorly scanned, can lead to misunderstandings and delays. Next, ensure that the pay application period dates reflect the actual dates of service and consistent with previous submissions to avoid confusion. Additionally, the contractor's pay application must match the itemized bid form. Discrepancies in unit price line items can complicate approvals. Another comment, it is okay to submit multiple contractor pay applications with one RFP for grant funds. Lastly, remember to provide the SKIP contractor's payment certification request with each pay application when submitting multiple requests in one submission. This certification is required for all SKIP projects to ensure federal compliance. By avoiding these common mistakes, grantees can help ensure a smoother and more efficient RFP submission process ultimately leading to timely funding.
As we transition to the state RFP form, it's important to note that the first section remains consistent with what we went over in the skip RFP form. As a reminder, this section requires essential details, including the grantee name, project title, and contact person.
The key difference lies in the funding section. In the state RFP, there is only one designated area for funding, specifically for state grant funding administered through the RIA. Here, grantees will enter the total grant award amount and the specific amount being requested. Just like the skip RFP form, the state RFP form has built-in functionality, which automatically calculates the remaining grant amount based on the information provided. This feature streamlines the process and minimizes errors, allowing for a clear overview of the funding status. Moving to the middle section, the requirements for supporting documentation mirror those in the skip form. Grantees should remember to attach all necessary supporting documents to accompany the pay request. This may include invoices, contractor pay applications, and any other relevant materials that validate the funding request. In the bottom of the form, the process for reporting local funds remains the same. Grantees will need to specify any local funds spent, along with providing the required signatures, title, and date. Importantly, the signature must match the individual listed on the authorized and approved signatures for payments and checks form in Block 3 to ensure compliance and authorization.
In this example, the grantee information section has once again already been filled out. With this being the second pay request, however, the number 2 has been entered next to pay request number to indicate that this is the second submission. For this example, the reimbursement checkbox has been selected to specify the type of payment being requested. The project has been allocated $750,000 in RIA state funding, with a prior request of $135,000 having been previously submitted. The contractor's pay application submitted for this state payment request reflects an amount due of $270,000. Supporting documents include a progress estimate and stored materials summary. Because this is a reimbursement, a copy of the check written to the contractor has also been submitted. Let's take a look at how this appears on the RFP form. As shown on the screen, $135,000 from the previous request has already been accounted for. Due to this grantee being in a Tier 2 county, and because it is a state grant, a 25% match on construction is required. As a result, each request for payment should reflect a pro rata split, meaning 75% of eligible funds can be requested, with the remaining 25% paid for by the grantee. Therefore, the amount of $202,500 is entered into the amount requested this draw column, representing 75% of the total amount due of $270,000. The form automatically calculates the new total remaining balance. Moving to the bottom section of the state RFP form, as displayed on the screen, you'll notice it closely resembles the skip version. The process remains the same in that you will align this section with your original application budget and cost estimate, or if later revised, matching the latest version. In the budget item column, you'll separate the expenses as needed. For example, creating line items for construction, engineering, or legal. The source column will indicate the source of the local funds, while the amount spent to date reflects the total amount paid to date. For this payment, you should enter the total local expenditures so far, including the local portion of the current pay app. So the local portion of this payment, $67,500, is combined with the local portion of the previous payment. Engineering or any other local expenditures on the project should also be updated.
When your RFP form is complete, it's important to submit it in the right format to ensure a smooth review process. The recommended format for submission is PDF. This ensures your document is both accessible and maintains its formatting across all devices. Once your PDF is ready, email it directly to your designated grant manager. Make sure to use a clear subject line to help your submission stand out in their inbox. Double-check your email before sending to confirm all required documents are attached. Submitting your RFP in the right format and through the proper channels ensures that your payment request is received and reviewed without unnecessary delays. Once a grantee submits their RFP with all the required attachments to their assigned grant manager, the process begins. Our goal is to process payments in a timely manner. First, the RIA team conducts an internal review to ensure all details are accurate and complete. Once approved, the RFP is sent to the State Treasurer Office, or STO. The STO then issues the payment directly to the grantee. If a complete and accurate RFP is submitted, this entire process typically takes 7 to 10 business days, ensuring timely and accurate handling of each RFP from submission to payment. Here are some of the most frequently asked questions about the RFP process. Feel free to pause the video at any time to review the information. These FAQs address the essentials to help ensure a seamless submission and payment experience. If your question isn't listed here, please refer to the next slide for contact information, where you can submit your inquiry to the email address provided or contact your assigned GM directly. Thank you for taking the time to learn about the RFP process. We hope this video has provided clarity and guidance to help you navigate each step, from submission to payment. Remember, submitting a complete and accurate RFP is key to ensuring you get your grant funds in a timely manner. If you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out to your assigned grant manager for support. By following these steps, you help us work together efficiently to advance your projects and achieve shared goals. Thank you for your commitment, and we look forward to supporting your continued success.